Hello! So in this lesson we're going to be talking through patterns and select. The learning objectives are to identify when an input does or doesn't match a pattern, choose between blank blank sequence and blank null sequence, which are functions we're going to cover when constructing a pattern, composing string patterns, so building patterns for strings, recognizing built-in functions that are going to return true or false, and constructing tests that can be used in functions like select. So starting off with patterns, we can use patterns to look for and test things in Wolfram Language. The most basic pattern that we're going to be talking about is blank, which can also be written with a single underscore. So blank just means this is one thing and it can be anything. A standard function to test a pattern is matchQ. MatchQ asks if one thing matches another thing. So if I do matchQ of two strings that both say the same thing, then we get true. If I do matchQ of two strings that have different content, we're going to get false. We can replace the second item with a blank to test if the first item is one thing that can be anything. So if I do a string of the word hi, comma blank, and ask if it matches, I'm going to get true, because a string of the comma blank is one thing that can be anything. And this allows us to build out much more complicated patterns. So for example, we might want to find a list that has the string hi in the second position and has exactly three things in it, but we don't care what the first thing is or what the third thing is. So in that case, I would say, does this list, blah, hi, and 17, match the pattern, a thing that can be anything, hi, a string of the word hi, another thing that can be anything? Yes, it does. Great. Now let's get a tiny bit more complicated. So blank sequence and blank null sequence are two other functions. Where blank means a single thing that can be anything, blank sequence, which can be written with a double underscore, means a sequence of one or more things that can be anything. So if we wanted to test that hi is somewhere in the list, with at least one thing before it, at least one thing after it, but we don't care how many things are before and after it, we use blank sequence instead of blank. So if I ask matchQ to take a list of things with hi in the list, and I say, does this match the pattern? One or more things that can be anything. String that says hi, one or more things that can be anything. True. Yes, it can. If we don't care if there's anything at all before or after hi, we could use blank null sequence, which will return true if there is a sequence of 0 or more things. So in this case, hi is at the front of the list in the first position, so there's nothing in front of it. And I want to test if this list matches the pattern, list of 0 or more things, hi, list of 1 or more things. True. So let's get more specific with string patterns. So many functions that work to test anything also work to test on strings. But if we want to test a substring, then we need to use functions that specifically work on strings. So for example, blank works with strings similarly to how it would work with a list of items. So if I have a list with just one thing in it, and I say, does this match a list of one thing? That's true. If I have a list with nothing in it, and I say, does this match a list of one thing? That's false, because the list doesn't contain anything. But if we want to test inside the string, we need to use string matchQ. So matchQ will test if there is a string present. String matchQ will test if there's anything inside the string. So matchQ, string with a space, blank is true. MatchQ of nothing at all is also true. But if I want to test inside the string to see if there's anything inside the string, I would need to use string matchQ. So string matchQ of a space, is that something? That's true. String matchQ of nothing at all, is that something? No, it is not. If we want to use specifications within our string pattern, we can use double tilde, these two wavy lines, to indicate a string join within the pattern. So a string match of string fun, does this match f joined with a sequence of one or more things? Yes. String match of fun, does this match with f joined with a sequence of one or more things? joined with B? No, it doesn't. There's no B in fun. We also have access to other matching functions like string starts queue, string ends queue, string contains queue, or string cases. String cases is going to extract instances of a certain phrase or string. So if I ask for all of the cases within test where there is T joined with one thing, it's going to give me TE, because that's the only instance in this string where there's T followed by one thing. One interesting thing that we can do with patterns is return only the part of the pattern that we're looking for. So let's say that we want to find the words in this string that are within quotation marks. We can look for the shortest match to a string pattern beginning and ending with quotation marks. So I say string cases within those sentences that are the shortest between a quotation mark and string joined with a sequence of one or more things joined with another speech mark. And that's going to return exciting sentence and exciting things. Fantastic. So if we want to only return the part within the quotation marks, without the quotation marks included, then we can use the variable within our pattern for the part that we'd like to return. So I would do in exactly the same way with the string cases sentences shortest, and then I want between the two quotation marks. But instead of just using a blank sequence, I'm going to call that blank sequence X. And then I'm going to use a rule to get only X instead of X and all of the other stuff that we put within the function shortest. So that's going to give us exciting sentence and exciting things without our quote marks. So that's pretty great. We've looked at a lot of different examples of ways to select within strings and see text that matches patterns. Now we're going to look at selecting items in a list based on a criteria. So we might want to select a certain thing based on a criterion. So there are a bunch of criteria that we might want to select for. Maybe we want to find strings that are exactly 5 characters long, or strings that start with an A, or strings that are palindromes, so the word is the same forward as it is backwards. So let's figure out how we would check to see if a string is 5 characters long. We'd want to use the function string length to see how long a string is. So string length of hello is 5. We can test if something is true using operators. Some of the most common operators are double equals to see if two things are the same, larger than to test if the first thing is bigger than the second thing, smaller than to see if the second thing is bigger than the first thing. So if I say, is string length of hello equal to 5, it returns true. Finding palindromes is also really easy with operators. We just test to see if the string is the same as the string in reverse. So if I do race car, is it equal to string reverse of race car? I'm going to get true. We can do lots of other things using any function that returns either true or false. So for example, we could check to see if a number is even using even q. So even q of 5 is false, even q of 8 is true. Functions with a q will only ever return true or false, and this is really helpful for functions like select, which we're going to discuss next. However, there are other functions that will return true or false that don't end in a q. For example, the function divisible checks to see if a number is divisible by another number. So divisible 10 by 2 is 10 divisible by 2 is true. So now let's talk about select. The function select allows us to use one of these tests to find all the items in the list that meet a criterion. Select takes a list as its first argument, and its second argument is a function that will return true or false when given one value from that list. Select is then going to apply that function to each item in the list and only return the values where the function evaluates to true. Just a second ago, we used even q to return true if a number is even and false if a number is odd. If we want to select all of the even numbers in a list, we would do select of our list of numbers and give select the criteria even q, and then it's going to return all of the things that when it evaluated even q for that number, it returned true. Even q is nice and simple because the function returns true or false. If we want to use an operator, then we need to get just a little sneaky and use a pure anonymous function. So remember that the slot, the hashtag, just means the one you're looking at right now. So select looks at the first item, then the second item, etc. And the ampersand, the and sign, just tells Wolfram Language that everything before the ampersand should be considered to be part of the function. So let's find all the strings in a list that have a length of 5. Select is going to look at each item in the list and run the test on it. And in this case, it's going to test if the output of string length is equal to 5. If the test is true, select is going to give us the item. If it's false, then it won't give us anything for that item. So if I put through select my list of words and I say string length of slot of the thing that we're looking at right now, does it equal 5? And then I close it off with an ampersand, then it's going to give me the list of all the words in this list that are length 5. Now, if you're questioning there, well, it says Harry twice in this list. Well, it doesn't. Harry is a single string in the list, just as its own thing, which has a length of 5. And Harry is also within a longer string, which doesn't have a length of 5. So string length, as we know, is going to take the length of the whole string, not the length of all of the words within the string. We could do that using text words or by splitting all of the strings into their composite words using string split. But in this case, we just wanted the strings that are length 5, not any substrings that are length 5. So that's what select gave us. Fantastic. So in this lesson, we've covered patterns and the function select. And our key takeaways from this lesson are going to be that patterns let us compare an input to a partially defined sequence. And we can use pattern inside match Q. Patterns can use blank, single underscore, blank sequence, a double underscore, and blank null sequence. Blank is any single thing. Blank sequence is a sequence of one or more things. And blank null sequence is a sequence of 0 or more things. Similarly to string manipulation, strings have their own set of pattern matching functions like string match Q, and these look for patterns within the string. We can construct tests or expressions that will return true or false, and these can be used inside other functions to only complete a task if the test returns true. Select is one case for tests, and select will only return the elements of a list when the result of the test is true. So we've learned a lot in this lesson, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.